am climbing up the mountain, gonna find an answer. I am climbing up the mountain, gonna find an answer.
How about the layout here? What were you going for?
So with this show, what I wanted to do was to trace the roots of what became known as the Summer of Love, the summer of 1967. So the logical starting point is the beat scene. The Beats basically preached a spiritual awakening, and that America was deficient in its spirituality. Howl, the poem by Allen Ginsberg, which really began the public consciousness of the beat scene and really was the first great spiritual challenge to the repressed America of the 1950s. The events in the Haight-Ashbury, although they weren't overtly political, were informed by political events. The civil rights movement in San Francisco in 1964, which is really important. The visit of the House Un-American Activities Committee, in which they basically got run out of town by the students, anti-war, anti-Vietnam War demonstrations, and of course the free speech movement. And what happens over the course of 1966, what I call up there, the real Summer of Love, is the development of the world's first psychedelic neighborhood in the Haight. The thing to remember about it is that it was a few hundred people. It was a very small neighborhood that nobody paid any attention to. It was not just a bunch of people lying around getting stoned. It was a bunch of people working hard, thinking seriously about LSD, among other things, about consciousness and what LSD was teaching them about it, about sexuality. The whole idea of the gentle hippie is the first real challenge to the basically macho idea of what a man is supposed to be in American history. And it leads to feminism, gay liberation, and now we're up to the level of, questioning transgender, or questioning gender itself. I guess the point that's really important to make is all the things that were happening in 1966, none of those issues have gone away. They challenge sexuality, materialism, racism, relationship to nature.
It's really what the Haight was about, the spirit of it, the music, the camaraderie, bringing everyone together for a scene.
And it worked until the end of the year, the year 1966, when they made the classic mistake. That is, they said, well, God, this is great. Let's throw a party. We'll call it the Gathering of the Tribes, the Great Human Being. And the problem with all this, and it was a perfect day, January 14th, 1967. But anyway, the problem was that maybe 50,000 people showed up, and suddenly their cover was blown. And suddenly the media was all about hippies. And suddenly you had, by spring, the realization, OMG, every high school kid in America wants to come to San Francisco this summer, or college kid. And that's tens of thousands of people. The fact that there wasn't a complete public health epidemic, disaster, speaks to the diggers, who were the sort of intellectual, ethical, and doers of support. They begged, borrowed, and stole food, cooked it, and fed people in the park. They held it together, but the fact is that the scene peaked at the Be-In. There's a wonderful photographer by the name of Elaine Mays who did a book called It Happened in Monterey Pop. One of the people she interviewed was the head of security at Monterey Pop. And he had always done the security for the Monterey Jazz Festivals, in which you had, people drank and you had a certain proportion, inevitably, of belligerents. So that the security people, he always went and got the biggest guys on the football team, and they were the security. But his quote was, for Monterey Pop, I could have used kindergartners. There was no need for security. And this motorcycle cop is stringing the orchids on the antenna of his motorcycle with a big grin on his face, because he has absolutely nothing to do, which is just the way you want it with security. So
that's a testament to the spirit of the time.
Exactly.
And the camaraderie, and people not just talking peace, but living it.
And they lived it, and they walked the walk, and they were introduced to some of the great music of our time, and which didn't hurt. And that was, that was the high point. The point is that so much of what was so outrageous, so absurd in 1967 is now mainstream. Yoga, just take yoga, take any aspect of Eastern religion. In 1967, or vegetarianism, in 1967 that was considered ludicrous, ridiculous. Not anymore. It is mainstream. If you do yoga, if you eat organic food, if you happen to be gay, it's like, so, it's part of the mainstream. It hasn't gone away.
It hasn't gone away. It hasn't gone away at all. We've met so many incredible people who were there back then and who have been in the scene and helped keep the thing alive all this long. And it's an honor to be a part of it. And we love talking to you so much, Dennis. You're such a great resource and a fun guy. And it's just really cool to even sit with you and be a part of all that. So we thank you.